Yo, thank you for joining us. My name is Richie Hardcore. I'm joined by Brit from the UNFD Run Club. I got Alex from Drown the City, and I have Josh from Banks Arcade. Give them a big round of applause. Thank you very much. We are having a really nice, open, honest conversation about mental health, physical fitness, mental illness, right? Because we all are on the spectrum all the time of being well and being unwell. And there's certain things that we can do in our lifestyles that move us up and down this continuum, right? And everyone here's got like their own story to tell. And I think given the nature of the audience and the lyrics of the songs that we listen to, it's a really wonderful opportunity to talk about things that matter. So thank you very much for being willing to share a little bit with the crowd. Alex, I'll start with you. Where does this start? Like, what's your journey with mental health? What's led you to being on the couch today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for having me. It's so hard to put into words something that I keep asking myself if it's a journey or is it a cycle? And that's something that I've been thinking about a lot with mental health. Sometimes it can feel like a revolving cycle that doesn't seem to go anywhere, but I'm trying to turn it into a journey, and I think that's something I've noticed coming out of COVID as a musician and being really into fitness and mental health is trying to feel like I'm making progress, even though I feel like mental health is a daily thing. It's a daily issues feel like, and the more you're on a journey, the more issues come up and you think, am I making progress? So for me, I've been a musician for about 15 years. Always been into, I guess, sport and running and fitness, but never cultivating that to feel like a better person or to feel fit or to cultivate skills that can transfer across fitness into mental health. And I think COVID you didn't really have anywhere to go. You had 2 years of being like, how can I make the most of a situation? And that's when I started picking up on the fact that the only thing I can control is in the moment, is moving my body and connecting to my mind and building skills through just this really small thing. And I started running and just trying to build something that I could use to extend out. So I guess flash forward sort of 2 years later, the benefits that came through that leading into now being a musician and bringing those skills across feel kind of mind-blowing. And so this is my first UNIFY where I've actually been sober, and I've been experimenting how that feels, sort of being in this, it's been really amazing. And I've come across a lot of people that have been sober this weekend as well, and I feel really amazing, really positive. Like, it's probably been the best UNIFY I've ever had, so yeah.
Do you think choosing to be sober has allowed you to come to better understand yourself?
So, it's only been 5 weeks. Very fresh.
Okay, right. That is very fresh. Yeah.
When I was younger, I was straight edge, actually. I have the proof. I've got a few straight edge tattoos, yes. So I spent, and actually this is really interesting because when I was maybe 18, I was straight edge for 2 years, but I was straight edge from the perspective of, fuck this. Like, fuck this, fuck that. And it wasn't from self-love. So I've done full circle and I've come back to being like, I think I want to be sober, I want to experiment. So I'm 5 weeks in, but it's from a place of like, I'm choosing myself. I've got a lot of things I want to achieve. Thank you, yeah. Like I'm like choosing to do it from a really positive place, and like that feels fucking good. Yeah, so yeah. 5 weeks, but it could be forever. It could just be a couple of months, and it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really nice. I think there's this whole idea that they call harm reduction. Like if you're drinking every day and then you start drinking 6 days or 5 days, you're in a better place, right? And change is a process, and every time you go around the cycle, you learn something about yourself, right? Oh, that's cool, congratulations. I want to come back and talk to you about that. Because you mentioned running, and you have a run club, all right? For me, as someone who's been through depression and anxiety, and there's a family history of like mental illness that I was born into, running has always been like an essential part of staying well. What led you to running?
So my partner's a really keen runner. Similar to Alex in lockdown, I discovered running, and I'm not gonna lie, I definitely hated it for about 6 months. Like there's a peak. Like you hate it for a while, and then you get over the hill, and then you're just like, oh, this is actually okay. But COVID for me was a really difficult time. I lost someone very important to me to suicide, unfortunately, last year. And I wanted to find a way that I could share something that was helpful for me with the rest of the community. So from there, the UNFD Run Club was born, because especially I guess during COVID, we've seen a lot of mental health issues arise. A lot more people are talking about mental health, and running is just something that is so simple to do, but has like actual proven benefits. Like you never feel bad after going for a run. Like even if you don't want to go, as soon as you get out there, all of a sudden you feel better, and you're just like, yes, I did it. And it also, I think, has a lot of lessons that I've learned that have translated into my everyday life and have helped me like cope with my own mental health issues, and then in turn been a better support for others throughout any struggles that they've had. So yeah.
What are some of those transferable skills? Like, what have you taken from your running program to taking care of your mental state?
I think just like the feeling that you can do something. Like you always think that you can't, but I think that what you learn from running is like, if you're consistent and you're constantly like, limits exist until they don't anymore, I think is something that I've really learned. Like when I first started, I never thought that I would run a race, and then I have run races. And I think, you just grow so much more as a person, because you are only battling against yourself. The only person that you can disappoint is yourself. I think that it's such a different mindset to a lot of other sports, because like the community is so much stronger, because everyone wants to just prop each other up, because like I said, the only person you're competing against is you. And so everyone's just like big cheerleaders. They don't care what time you're running, what pace you're running. Everyone's just there for each other. And I think that that's been something that's been so incredible for me. I've made so many amazing new friends throughout the running community, and it's just like a really supportive environment, which I think is really important. And that's why I wanted to share it with other people, because like it doesn't even matter if you're physically running with them. We have people that connect online and chat and give each other kudos on Strava, and like they've all never met, and it's incredible. Like it's nice to see them all connect over a common bond of like loving heavy music but also wanting to look after themselves.
Yeah, I think culturally, whether you're in the heavy music scene or just in general, we tend to bond over partying, right? Like, let's get wasted, what's up, drinks this weekend? Whereas if you're like, yo, what's up, you want to catch up and go for a run, there you get this social aspect of it, but you also get, you get like positive psychological benefits from that too, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, it just sort of flips the way that you are hanging out with people and going to see friends and stuff like that. Like it sort of turns that narrative on its head. Like Alex and I have definitely bonded a lot over running. We've been doing to a few events, and like, just always supporting each other, whether we catch up often or not. Like it's definitely formed a different bond, as opposed to like had we met maybe at a gig or something when like everyone was drinking and stuff. I think I've got to know Alex a lot better, and we have a deeper connection because we have like been running together.
Yeah. You have like a real tangible interest, because I've been around people whose only thing that they've got in common is the drugs that they do. And then one of them stops doing drugs, and then they've got no community anymore, because they're trying to like move into a different space in life.
Yeah, and I think that my whole life doesn't revolve around running. Like I definitely do it a lot, and it is something that is important to me. But I also like I have other interests as well. But it's also, like you said, it's a common ground that like you can always come back to. Like if you all of a sudden decide that you're going to be straight edge or you want to be sober, then that part of your life that might have been a connection is now gone. And so then, like you said, people just disappear because they're like, oh, you're not fun anymore.
Yeah. Don't invite Brit to the party. Yeah. What about you, Josh? What leads you to being on the couch talking about, our mental health struggles?
I guess for me, I've observed mental health struggles and issues throughout my family for my entire life. I saw it on both sides of my family and friends all around me. And I think, especially with everything that's been going on with the internet and with the pandemic, it's present at everybody is at some point on that spectrum. And I think that when I started, I've always had a relationship with fitness and with doing active things. It was a big part of growing up for me, was just going and playing outside and doing physical stuff. But once I started to make a commitment to doing it more, it came out of a lot of the things we were talking about. I was partying heaps. I was always doing crazy stuff, and I didn't have that thing to bring me back to baseline. And like I'm not a sober individual. I don't live a perfect life, but I have cultivated practices that allow me to stay on the path. And I've helped to cultivate a relationship with suffering and with hard things through martial arts and through training, which means that, if I have a bad period and there's a month where I start doing the wrong things and I start getting into the wrong mental spaces, I can come back to this practice and it can help ground and center me. And then, so I found those benefits for myself, and that was the first step. But then I started realizing that when you do something and other people see that and they see the benefits you're getting, then they want to do it and they get inspired by it, and then you get inspired by them getting inspired, and it just continues to grow. And I see some of my best friends, like the drummer in our band, James, it was only a couple years ago that he's like, man, I want to get fit, I want to start running. And just like you said, we like to go out and drink and party together and do that stuff, but now we have this other side to our relationship where it's like, let's wake up and go on a run, let's train, let's eat healthy food from Monday to Friday, and then on Saturday we'll go drink and party.
Yeah. It's a balance, because if it's all drinking and partying, it's probably not going to end well eventually, right?
100%. And if it's all anything, it's not going to end well. It has to be balanced, and whatever that journey is for you, whether that's I want to get better at martial arts, or I want to get better at running, or I want to be sober, it's hard to do these things. It's very, very hard. And so you do feel a sense of community with anyone that's on that path, because you're like, I see you. If someone's like, oh, I lost all this weight, or I did this, or I achieved this thing and I wanted to do it and I did it, I get so excited. I'm like, man, what was that like? I'm talking to them and I'm like, man, I'm so proud of you, and I don't even know who the person is, and I just get stoked about it and feel like I'm a part of this community, not just of martial arts or of music or of people who are trying to be sober, but just people who are striving and just on the path.
I think there's a consistent theme amongst all of you in that you've all mentioned the word community or connection a lot. Do you guys feel like the modern world means a lot of people feel disconnected or lonely a lot? What's it like in your friend group, going back to you, Alex? Or the people around you, have you observed people getting kind of lost?
I like what you're saying there, and something just popped into my mind that I would consider myself to be an introvert. And a very introverted person, a lot of anxiety, and I would find it difficult to make new friends. And that's probably why I have a big history of drugs and alcohol, because it would drop those barriers and I would find I'm fun, people like me, and I experienced a lot of anxiety coming out of that. If people wouldn't like me, they would think I was boring. That was something I would think about. Even to this day now, I would think making new friends, I don't want to go for coffee with that person, I don't want to go train because they might think I'm boring. So it was like this big vulnerability, dropping all of that, and learning the importance of community, because I used to say to myself, I'm introverted, I don't like being a part of a group, I don't want to run with people, I don't want to go do that. But it was just anxiety and self-loathing. I didn't understand that it actually wasn't that. You can be introverted but love being around people. So I think going through this journey, that actually helped me find space for going to new experiences and having a conversation with new people. And especially Brit saying we're going for a run together and we're having really deep, awesome, real conversations that I haven't had with people in years. And it just really shifted for me, being community is actually so important. So much more comfort in conversations with people and coming out of my shell, and a lot more confidence.
I think there's a lot of healing and self-development just in that honest conversation. A problem shared is a problem halved. I know that sounds pretty basic, but a lot of us don't know how to do that. I think men in particular, if we look at suicide statistics, men are 3/4 of suicides, right? And a lot of us are socialized to push it down, don't talk about that, don't be a pussy, right? What do you think?
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because you said, you perceive yourself in a certain way, I'm an introvert, or I'm this, or I'm that, and you tell this story about who you are. And that might be I'm the excited person, or I'm the person that walks around with my head down, and all of these things might be things that you do or have done, but when you're involved in practices like we're talking about, they actually help you to realize I'm not just this one thing, and I don't have to be defined by this one little box of my personality. And I think that the stories that we hold on to about ourselves, like, oh, I'm afraid of public speaking, and you just think that in your head, and you think that forever. And because you believe that story, you're never going to go on public speak, and you're going to think, oh, I'm bad at that. But then if the right circumstances allow you to be put in that circumstance, you realize, actually, I have been afraid of it in the past, and I might have been really bad at it in the past and made myself look like an idiot. But that doesn't mean that that's not who I am, that's not my story. And I can change that through practices that help me come in connection with parts of myself that I might not want to visit or, work through.
I love that. There's a whole process called, like, the brain is really neuroplastic, right? Like, if you keep doing something long enough, like, you can shift your neural pathways. And that includes, I'm not a scientist, so I'm presuming, though, what you're talking about, like that inner narrative, if you tell yourself that you're a piece of shit all the time, you're going to be a piece of shit. If you tell yourself that, actually, I'm a fucking champ, you're eventually going to be a champ. It just takes time. And community. Yeah, right. You want to add to that?
I think we had an interesting conversation, was it maybe yesterday, about like not being defined by your past mistakes. I think that that's also something that I've learned throughout this process, is that like people can change, people can grow, and you can be a completely different person to what you were 6 months ago. It doesn't have to be like a really long drawn out process. You can learn something new and then be like, oh my God, I didn't know that before, and now this has changed the way that I think about something else. I think, I just am constantly I want to empower people to grow, and I want to empower people to sort of learn about themselves and understand that like it's okay to change, it's okay to move forward, and moving forward in like healthy ways is actually a really brave thing to do in a society that does try and sort of pull that down, especially in the music space. And again, like community doesn't necessarily have to be physical people, it can be an online space. All it is like common ground, like people that have common unity. Someone said to me the other day.
And think about how much, because we obviously shared a love for martial arts. Think about the difference between someone on their first day of doing jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, and then if they fall in love with it, and then 2 years later, like look at that person on day one, and then look at them in like 2 years.
It's like they come in and they're like soft jelly, and then like 2 years later they're like hard fucking oak.
And everyone, like all my friends, like when I started like actually committing to that, all my friends noticed it. They were like, oh, you're a completely different person pre that and
it's the internal growth. It's like the sense of confidence that you feel. It doesn't have to be martial arts. It could be anything. Like running, or it could be yoga, or it could be Pilates, or it could be whatever. Just some sort of like physical practice done routinely and done intentionally is going to have positive emotional, psychological, even spiritual impacts, right? Hey, I wanted to ask you guys, did any of you go see a therapist, or psychologist, or a counselor? Because I've been in therapy fucking heaps. And it's genuinely, it's like, I can't express how important that's been for my own journey of, I guess, self-understanding and healing and putting like better practices in my life. Have any of you done something similar?
Yes. I sent myself to a psychologist when I was 18 years old. I'm 33 now, so do the math. And the feeling of having someone listen to you and just intensely, compassionately empathize with you, it's probably the best feeling I've ever had in my life. And I've had counsellors off and on for 15 years. But something that I discovered recently, I suffered with really bad anxiety, crippling anxiety, so infiltrated in my life I didn't even recognize it was anxiety. Too scared to take this opportunity, too scared to be with that person, not even recognizing a physical symptom, it's a belief system. And I started with the journey of the emotional unraveling of anxiety, and it led to today understanding that anxiety is quite physical. And I don't know if people talk enough about the fact that the nervous system and regulating the nervous system, you can sort of tackle that from two different areas. So it can be talk therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, but it can also be moving your body, taking a cold shower, going for a swim in the ocean. It's going to re-regulate your nervous system. So that, a big journey of...
Have you read the book, The Body Keeps Score?
I want to read it, Richie. That is on my list. I'm a bit scared because I feel like things are going to come out.
That's good though.
and funny you say that, because obviously a sign to just do it.
There you go.
It's a
The universe brought us to this moment.
Yeah.
Read that book.
Yeah.
What about you? You ever checked out therapy, counseling?
Yeah,
Some sort of alternative?
I have actually during this this year. Last year while we were in lockdown, I started seeing a therapist, and I don't know. For me, I didn't get the same sort of benefits that some people have gotten from it. I kind of found that in other places and through other mentors and by reading. But I know that, you know, for people in my family and for some of my closest friends, it has made a world of difference. And I guess for me, that medium, I'm in a place where I express myself all the time and I'm constantly talking. And so like, I felt like the issues that I had were more something that I needed to work through for myself, because I don't feel like I lack. I have so many good people around me that I love, who I am very, very close to, who are in a position where I'm able to express those things, and I don't feel like it's all pent up. And I've got myself to a point emotionally where I can say all that. So for me, it didn't really have the same impact, but I definitely think that it's an amazing tool and it helps so many people.
I think it's just one thing, right? Like, there's not one answer. There are like multiple things that we can choose from, and we just have to figure out what works for us, or maybe do a few of them at the same time, and experiment. Like, I've seen shit therapists, and I'm like, oh, dude, you made me feel worse.
Yeah.
Like, I've seen like brilliant ones and gone and seen them for years and years and years. On top of exercise, on top of getting to bed early, right? Like, it's a combination of factors that can either make us better if we're unwell mentally, or keep us well, right? Have you had an experience
I actually
on the couch?
I have an inherent fear of therapists.
Really?
So
Where does that come from?
I actually have no idea. I think maybe
I feel that.
maybe movies, like the whole like lie down on the couch and tell us about your childhood kind of vibe, you know, like. So I actually have anxiety about going to therapy. So I've been once, and I think I just sat there stiff as a board the whole time, and then walked out and didn't really know what happened. Like it wasn't the right thing for me. But you're right in saying like there's a lot of tools. You have to have tools in your tool belt. So I take medication, I run, I know like my limits and my boundaries, which I'm getting better at defining with my friends. Like I know when I need to have time for myself. I'm probably a bit like Alex in the sense that I'm an introvert that also likes being around people a lot. Like I love social space, but I also really value my own time and being by myself. So when I need that space to just reset a little bit, like I will just not do anything. I have really great understanding friends and people in my life that will understand when I just need my own space. And for me, like, I can't speak to therapy because I haven't really explored that yet, but like as I'm okay coping at the moment. It probably is like another thing that I can go down the path of a bit later in life, but yeah, there's so many different layers, and it also is like, it's expensive as well.
No, that's the thing, and like I will say this, I actually think it's really fun. Like if it didn't cost so much, I'd probably do it just because I love just going in there and blabbering at someone and just being like, I just go in there and I get an hour just to talk and like explore all of these little things that like no one else wants to hear that. Like, but then yeah, I found like the cost of it was kind of there as well.
I think we have a well publicized mental health issue across much of the Western world. Like the statistics around anxiety and depression, self-harming behaviors, substance abuse, this is the same. England, America, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, right? But I think governments could do a lot to address that by like properly funding good therapy. Not just 100%. For people in crisis, because then maybe it's too late, but as like a preventative approach to it, right? Like everyone gets like a couple of free sessions a month or some shit like that. I think also more broadly, why do so many of us need to go to fucking therapy is an issue that we could explore, like cost of living, like, childhood trauma, like all these sorts of things. I do wonder, what's the fence at the top of the cliff rather than ambulance at the bottom? Do you guys have any thoughts on, I know it's a big question, but what do you think, like, what's one thing you would shift in the world that we live in to improve our collective well-being? That's what I'm asking.
I think it's happening. I think that the shift from like the work-life balance, I think is a really big move that's happening. A lot of workplaces are like keen to stick to the flexible working and like giving people a bit more time in their day, because like traditionally we worked like 38-hour weeks, and the 38-hour week was designed when there was a woman at home all the time. There wasn't two people in a household working. So when you have two people or however many people in your household that work 38 hours a week, there's no one at home in the day doing all the day-to-day stuff, and so then the stress of like having to go back and do all your like life admin in like 2 days is ridiculous. Like it just is something that I think society has woken up to, but I think that we have like it's not moving fast enough. I think that there's a lot of catching up to do. I think everyone's now really aware of these mental health issues that have been caused by a lot of societal problems, but because it's so slow moving to catch back up to like where we need to be, it's still, I think it will be a long time before it's a society that fully respects mental health and takes it seriously.
Yeah. What about you guys? What's one thing that you think we could shift like structurally? We're talking like if you had a magic wand.
Like about systems and stuff that we have, or just, I mean, for me, the thing that I think would change the world, regardless of what time frame we're in or what's going on, I think is to bring people closer to their passions and to the things that actually light a fire in them, and that's like my band and the message that we put out and what we have kind of bonded over is that we truly believe that there's so many people that are out there that feel like they're in a place that they don't want to be, and they're doing things that don't make them happy, whether that's interacting with substances in a way or working a job that they don't like, and they haven't had this messaging given to them to say, find it, like whatever it is, find that thing, whether it's being a dad and being a really good dad and doing it with all of your heart, that's just the same as being a rock star. Like it's all, if that's what your thing is and you give it every single ounce of your heart, and if everybody was doing that, the world would be a much different place. But I feel like people don't get that messaging. They're told like, this is how you should live your life, and if you don't live your life like this, you're not a part of society.
But also people need to know that it's okay to fail as
Exactly.
well. You can try things and you can fail, and then you learn and you keep going. Like failing is fine. Like that's how you grow. Like I think everyone, especially I think like you were talking about males and how they have a higher suicide rate and higher anxiety and all that sort of stuff because they don't talk about it, and they're also like told failing is bad. Like if you fail, that's it. Like you're not a man.
Have you read the book Lost Connections by Johan Hari?
I actually have.
I think it's the best book on mental health, and it really explains a lot of
There's
stuff.
the eight ways to combat
depression. And you talked about like finding your passion or your purpose.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of us do lose sight of, right?
What are the ones he says in it? It's
community, connection,
sense of purpose,
sense of like autonomy. I think is one of them.
And your work, passion in your work, like how you make money. Like that's a massive thing that like we're told like you've got to get a job that makes lots of money, but not told like you need to find something that you're going to enjoy long term. And I know I've got heaps of friends who are making heaps of money, and then they're like they literally don't like their life because they never wanted to be in that job, and they weren't told, hey, find something that you're going to love for a long time. They were just told find something that's going to make money. That's what makes you a man, is having heaps of money and things.